This video was shot in early July 2020 in response to perceived council neglect of the Bayview area. That's not to say there isn't neglect elsewhere, just that here we see Bayview only. Bayview Baths has been decrepit for more than a decade. Maybe Dick could swim in here, or Jaws.
Sydney Water is concluding its testing to finally find out what exactly is the reason as to why there are water quality issues, so that those issues can be remedied, and hopefully then the council can be secure about making an investment to reinstate the pool.
The Baths had a centenary celebration in 2016 where local MP Rob Stokes unveiled a plaque with a personal reference, a few pretty words and an historical allusion. The usual formula. 4 years later, the baths are even further advanced into senility and decrepitude. On Pittwater Road, immediately east of the baths, a massive weed infestation claims one side, barring it to pedestrians. On the other is an inadequate footpath and crumbling retaining wall. Which brings us to the reserve besides Bayview Sea Scouts, which has become, under Northern Beaches Council administration, a dinghy storage and trailer dump site. On the other side of the Sea Scouts, near the tennis courts, residents have poisoned a century-old copse of waterfront casuarinas, presumably to improve their views. Why aren't they replanting these trees? This is the boat launching ramp. There was a large casuarina tree on this corner, right where the COVID-19 sign is. There's nothing there now. There was another tree here, a large one. Instead we now have dinghies. You're not allowed to have dogs, and apparently trees too, but you can have dinghies. One needs to be planted here with a large guard. And if we pan across Bayview Park, that's what we have. This tree is senescent and on the way out. Many of the others are too. There was a tree there. It's gone. There was another tree there. It's gone. There was another tree there. It's gone. All these remaining trees for the casuarinas are now senescent. If this isn't replanted, within 20 years most of these trees will be dead, possibly quite sooner, and we will have a treeless park. The answer is to replant with strong fence guards. They must be majorly strong. There must be protection against resident bastardry. Someone up here is poisoning the trees. And the trees, these trees, although they seed prolifically, cannot reproduce because of the continuous mowing that takes place here, and that means any prospective seedling that's trying to come up will not survive the mowing. And therefore all new plantings, of which there should be at least a dozen, need to be guarded with strong guards, and also protect against dogs too. Okay, this is across the Kooroowall Reserve entrance, walking towards Mona Vale on the pathway. We have lovely lomandras here. This is as they should be. These have been lightly pruned. Lomandras, but on this side, completely massacred. What is going on here? Why is this being done? There is no point to this. This isn't gardening, this is vandalism. These plants are important habitat. Why is this being done? And there is no pedestrian protection. People are just doing what they want. Here we have more emasculated lomandras. Now the problem is that the council originally planted these lomandra right alongside the path, not realising that they thus created an expensive job forever, because they do come across the path. The lomandras should be removed after another line of lomandras has been positioned a metre or so further in. And look at this. What kind of a kind of a joke is this? What is the point of this? So we have this hugely ugly and dangerous situation here on Pittwater Road at Bayview, where beautiful native plants are being destroyed and habitat for small creatures, which I wouldn't say they abound in here, but they certainly are in here. And if it's representative of the Northern Beaches Council standards, then their standards are no good. Look at this, dead. A stump. Another stump. There are problems at the bridge over Kooroowall Creek too, where Kooroowall Reserve is eroding at a significant rate, probably because of dinghy wash, but possibly also due in part to climate change and associated sea level rise. Trees are collapsing into the creek and vegetation is accumulating at its mouth. Given that a block of land here would fetch something like $5,000 per square metre, doing nothing in terms of land loss must surely exceed the cost of fixing the problem by a significant margin. Erosion also appears to be undermining the bridge foundation. Across the creek, Pittwater Council built the Flying Fox Cafe as an income-producing asset to offset the cost of maintaining Winnererremy Bay Park and playground. But the building today is increasingly neglected, with weeds sprouting from gutters and significant corrosion around the roof.
Boys, watch out for the puddles.
In Kooroowall Reserve, the once carefully maintained winding crushed sandstone path with planted edges has become a less attractive broad thoroughfare with many puddles to negotiate after rain. It's easy to forget just how beautiful this section was only a few years ago. This is not entirely down to the Northern Beaches Council, because an increasingly dense forest has altered the microclimate here so as to favour climbing vines, most of which are native. But the lack of maintenance for the path and a marked lack of sensitivity in dealing with its borders is a problem. Neglect within the once beautiful Casuarina forest is evidenced by rubbish strewn around and weeds. Children have always gotten up to mischief here, and that's probably no worse today than a few years ago, but the potential for damage demands constant checking and quick remediation when it occurs. There's a weed for you, lovely Scots thistle, and over here we've got a mount of lantana, which is proving too much for a local bushcare group. Its members are mainly women and most of them are older, so getting this out is a bit beyond them. This needs funding and it needs tender, loving care. This seat must have cost a substantial amount of money. It's been pulled up from the shoreline here because it was broken and twisted, and it was brought back up here where it can be used again, but it's a shame to see things in such bad repair. It used to be down here over the sand, but the erosion took the sand out from under it and it fell down here. All of this area is eroding rapidly. Interestingly, here you've got a native plant which has collapsed. You see it's virtually entirely out of the ground, but it's still alive. And it's alive because these roots here are still drawing sustenance from under the bank. But basically this tree will be dead, and you can measure the rate of erosion here, and you're looking at something like at least a metre in a relatively short period of time. $2 million, $3 million for 600 metres, so that would make about $5,000 a square metre. So is it possible that the cost of not doing anything here far exceeds the cost of doing what needs to be done, i.e. a retaining wall? This is what Kooroowall Reserve looked like in 2011. So it's a measure of what's been lost and what we can win back. Mayor Michael Reagan assured me on February 15, 2020 that Bayview Park will be replanted and that the new plantings will be well protected. That'll be good. We would be equally pleased to see these other issues addressed, especially the massacre of lomandras along Pittwater Road, which should come to an immediate permanent end, along with a sensitive resurfacing of the crushed sandstone path through Kooroowall Reserve.